tremendous amount of time dealing with the disruption versus dealing with the curriculum. Now, we can take it off the table, but I have to say, you are going to see the impact of not having programs that deal with those in-class teacher-to-student interaction, student-to-student interaction. This is the kind of stuff that we were trying to bring to the fore when we were talking about bullying. This is where you teach students what to do, what not to do. This is where you build a community that says, we will not tolerate bullying. So I put it out there as this is only a plan. I think all these pieces of the district improvement plan are going to come into question the minute you see the numbers for next week. And you're going to have to decide, along with some of my recommendations, whether we do any of it, none of it, or how many hoops are we going to try to jump through to keep some of these pieces in place. It's the same discussion I had with Dr. Condon when we were talking about student achievement. She's putting in, $77,000 for materials, $25,000 for professional development, curriculum development, which is kind of goes along with all of it, $70,000. I honestly, looking at the numbers, don't know whether we can do these things. So to me, this is just one of those. We say to the community, we want to improve this part. There may be other pieces to add to it, which we can add when we do the yearly review of the plan. But I think we should have something in the books so that we can have a substantive discussion as to what is it we need as a district and what resources are available or not when we start the discussion on the budget next year. Next week. Next week for next year.
Thank you. I'd like to lead the second round of discussion, and then I also have a motion when appropriate, a revision to the motion on the table that I think, because first of all, this discussion is not about removing this plan off the table. That comment was made by a previous speaker, and my intent is not to remove an element of our superintendent's management of our school district off the table. My concern is fiscal and efficiency. In doing some research also into the responsive classroom approach, I was able to locate one school, the Gill Montague Regional School System, that had this in place. At the same time, it was taken over by the Department of Elementary Education in Massachusetts. The process of being taken over for various reasons, not because of the responsive classroom, came up with a list of recommendations. They didn't indicate whether to continue or to not continue responsive classroom. So I don't know if it was effective. What I'm saying is there is multiple approaches that we need to deal with. Getting back to the statement that we came up with for our action plan, the school climate. I'm very concerned of the atmosphere in the classroom, the stress brought on by these larger classrooms, and so when the teacher is called upon to deal with those 3 or 4 disciplinarian problems, which is what I heard, and they may be disciplined for various reasons. They need to assess those reasons. They need to deal with it. I still want to see some resources put that way. So my concern is the cost, and I believe I have a motion that can keep this outline plan in place, but perhaps, and I'll reserve making that motion to appropriate.
Mr. Lane. I'll stipulate that it may work. It may have been a great experience in the classroom. We have very smart administrators, very, very smart teachers. Why do we need to pay for someone else's program? We know what needs to be done. If you need to have that, why do we need to pay $250,000 for someone to tell us exactly what you just saw in the classroom? Why do we need to pay that money? If we know that we need to have some quality time with the kids, that doesn't cost any money at all. It comes from the superintendent to say, you know something, we're going to have 20 minutes of quality time in the morning with our kids. We don't need to pay $250,000 for someone to tell us what we know. We have smart administrators, it's smart teachers. Let them do their job. I mean, it's management of their classroom, and if this is the way we want to have the climate, let's do it. I'm not debating on whether it was that kid might not have ever said to you in church, my name is John Smith. Great if he learned it from the responsive classroom, but why do we need to have their program at $250,000 price tag where we can just change our philosophy of teaching? We have very smart teachers, very smart administrators, everyone's dedicated. Let's just do it without putting a price tag and paying somebody else $250,000 to say, hey, tell us what we already know. Let's do it.
Two things. In response to that, from what I understand of the responsive classroom, that's only a very small portion of it. And, I'll let Dr. Polly get more into that because it does involve more of the discipline stuff and that sort of thing. And I actually, I have to say, I was able to see in a second grade classroom an issue come up during the morning meeting with a student, and the teacher very calmly said, so-and-so, I've talked to you twice, you need to go take a break. He got up, he walked over to the chair, he sat there for however long he felt, it wasn't that long, he came back, he didn't give another problem. He was getting a little silly in the game that they were playing in the morning meeting, and he had to go take a break, and he came back, and he was absolutely back in tune with the entire class. And I agree. I mean, some of this is very common sense when you see it. There's absolutely no question about it. I took psychology in college. This is what they taught us. But I think from talking to the teachers, the younger teachers that are right out of school, they don't get that kind of training when they come into a class, when they go through school and they come into a classroom. They're overloaded with trying to figure out how to write their curriculum, getting all this stuff done, and trying to manage their classroom. And I think that the responsive classroom is a very good outline, and it also gives the kids some stability from year to year to year to year. If we just, say this, run your classroom the way you want. Well, this teacher in high school or whatever is going to allow cell phones and this one's not, because I know it happens. So that's not very, consistent from class to class, and the kids get a mixed message. And then they start testing the teachers a little bit. And, I think we need to start right from the bottom and work our way through. And eventually you'll start to see the social climate improve, the teacher morale improve, the children wanting to come to school, having fun, knowing their peers. But yeah, some of it is absolutely common sense. I am not going to argue with that. And it is a hard one to swallow when you go, we're paying how much money to do that, to do what? But sometimes, and again, to me, this is a plan. This isn't a budget we're approving. And when push comes to shove and we see the bottom line and we see the numbers that are available, we may not be able to do any of this. And, that's probably what's going to end up happening, but, we still have to have a plan in place.
Dr. Pop.
You don't have a comment?
No, I do. I agree with that. I don't think this is something that people are going to intuitively know how to do effectively in the classroom. I mean, that almost falls under the category of saying, well, if you're teaching second grade math, then what do you need a college degree for? Everybody knows second grade math. It's when you're standing in front of 28 people, even if they're only 8 years old, it's overwhelming, and they don't teach you how to do it in educational programs. And I also agree that, again, I'll just reiterate real quick, this is just a plan. This is not funding the plan. I happen to agree that this is the way to go, but we'll take a vote.